Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to season 4 of Russell's Movie Reviews. So I know it's been about 3 to 4 weeks since my last movie review, which was on The Untouchables. Um, and really it's just a fact of that I just needed a few weeks, like, break from the last movie review, or the last episode of season 3, before jumping to going into season 4. Because if I did season 4 immediately after season 3, I just would have burned myself out. Plus, I wanted to kind of time the episodes out a bit, which I will discuss in a few episodes. So, um, yeah, I hope you guys are gonna enjoy season 4. Um, let's just get right on to it. So, as you guys can tell by the title, the thumbnail, as well as the shirt I'm wearing today, I will be reviewing Top Gun. Now, this was, for a few years, this was a really talked about film in my childhood when I was really getting into filmmaking. This was a very talked about film. Especially really talking about all the aerial shots in the film, which with a with a title of Top Gun, and like reading off the plot synopsis, it's obvious where that's gonna be like where people are coming from with that. Um, and yeah, so um, my history with Top Gun was really just the fact of I've known about the film and I've heard about it several times, but never decided to watch it. Even when I got this steelbook release, I never decided to watch it because one, school, and two, I just wanted to watch other stuff and do other films before doing Top Gun. And I thought, I was actually gonna put it in as one of the final like 15 or so episodes for season 3. Well, no, not like the last like 7. But then I thought, you know what? I'm just not gonna do it. I'm gonna just do some other films instead of that. Um, and so I thought, you know what? Since I wasn't able to do it last season, might as well make it a season 4 pilot. So I get it. Um, but yeah, really, that's just my history on the film, and so let's get on to the review itself. So this was made on a $15 million budget. It made domestically over 179 million, and worldwide it made over 356 million. So this was a box office smash. And this was directed by Tony Scott and produced by Dom Simpson and I already forgot the line. I already forgot the names. It's Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, who were known for making a lot of films during the 80s and 90s. Some notable exceptions are Days of Thunder, which I believe came out a few years after this film, conveniently also starring Tom Cruise. Bad Boys from in '95, and The Rock, which was their final collaboration. I will discuss why that is the case when I ever decide to review The Rock. Because I'm not gonna go into it too much here. Either I'm gonna discuss it in either Bad Boys or The Rock. When I review either of those, most likely The Rock. But um, yeah. So let's get on to the plot itself. So the Top Gun Naval Fighter Weapons School is where the best of the best train to refine their elite flying skills. When hotshot fighter pilot Maverick, played by Tom Cruise, is sent to the school, his reckless attitude and cocky demeanor put him at odds with the other pilots, especially the cool and collected Iceman, played by Val Kilmer. But Maverick isn't only competing to be the top pilot. I cannot speak. He's not only competing to be the top fighter pilot, he's also fighting for the attention of his beautiful flight instructor, Charlotte Blackwood, played by Kelly McGillis. Um, so yeah, um, pretty pretty simple, really. It's just, hey, this hotshot goes into the school, or this hotshot goes to the best of the best, and yet um realizes that maybe everything isn't so bright. Or like it's a typical plot that we usually find in some films. Um, but I think really this is one of the better ones because it was one of, I believe it's one of the originators of that kind of plot, where it's like, oh, the hotshot comes into town, realizes that he really isn't the hotshot, but then also learns something about himself. Um, this is one of the better examples of that kind of synopsis. Uh, and I feel like that because I've seen um a few like fighter films, like Top Gun and stuff like that, and I feel like that Top Gun is probably one of the better ones since it was one of the first really ever. It shows that like they're really flying up there, which I will get to. Uh, I'll get about talking about that later on in this review. Um, but overall, it is very impressive what they were able to show on screen in this film, especially where like nowadays, like I think this along with Independence Day, which came out 10 years later, surprisingly, really show what you could do with practical in like real life jet footage. I feel like that Top Gun slightly outdoes Independence Day because it's mostly just models and CGI in Independence Day, while this film it's actual fighter planes from the military that they got permission to take these jets and fly around in front of the cameras, and it's really theirs. So I think that this film slightly out edges Independence Day in that market, and it I think that it just really shows that I think this is honestly one of the best examples of how practical effects still can hold up. Um, because like I said, most of it is like most of the jet footage is actual jets, but I believe there are some. I may be wrong about this, but I believe there are some shots of like model planes. Because I'll get to substitutes about that later, but there's some shots of the plane spinning around where it does kind of, to a normal eye it does kind of seem like it looks like an effect, but also to me it doesn't really look like they actually spun a plane around in the air to simulate a plane, like a fighter plane going out of control. I just don't think that they would do that, so it would be most logical to put a model in there. But again, I'll get to more about that later. And um, I think this is also another this is a good example of how to seamlessly blend real life footage with effects. Um, like having um, having the actual planes like going, flying towards camera and like actually like doing this sort of stuff. Um, but when they need to do a little bit more, um, kind of like more dangerous stuff, like I said, like making the planes like spin around at a really high speeds or having the planes explode. It seems really like it really is like a model when that sort of stuff is happening. So and it does like it just saying it is more, looks like they it makes more sense to use a model because that's gonna cost less than actually blowing up a military grade fighter jet and paying like over $30 million to replace it. So it makes way more sense to use models instead of blowing up or spinning around a very expensive fighter jet. I'm gonna move on to talking about the cast, which is probably one of the most. If you mention Top Gun, it's what people talk about the most is the jet footage, the cast, and another thing which I'll get to later, which is honestly actually kind of sad. And if you guys know the history of Top Gun, the film, you know exactly what I'm going to be talking about later on in this review. Um, but yeah, let's go on to the cast. So, um, we obviously have the main star himself, Tom Cruise, as Maverick, and this was a breakout role for him because before he did films that he did very good in, but they weren't major box office like successes. I think the only one that was really a true success, which even then it wasn't really like that popular, was Risky Business from I think '83. Uh, but besides that, he did The Outsiders, which I discussed previously, and a few minor parts as well. But this was really the film that kind of kickstarted his career and like blew him up into like like celebrity status. And honestly, I can kind of see why that happened because the way that he sort of acts in the film is, I mean, really, his character is a cocky asshole. Um, and Tom Cruise plays it so well. Um, and I really think that it shows that like how much how this kid could act back then, and it really does show. We have Kelly McGinnis as Charlotte Blackwood, also known as Charlie. She is the romantic. Oh, I just almost knocked over my mic. This she is the romantic relationship for Maverick, and um, she is fantastic in the role. I gotta admit, she looking pretty good in this film. Uh, and she her acting is again very good in this film. We have Val Kilmer as Iceman, and I think this, like Tom Cruise, this was his breakout role. Because unlike Tom Cruise, where I could see, like, I know what he did before, like Risky Business, The Outsiders. Val Kilmer, I don't really know what he did before this. If even he did any acting before this, like in terms of actual like theatrical films, which he probably did. But this really catapulted his career in like Tom Cruise. Um, it's like a funny comment that I heard someone make when I was doing research about this film is that they compared the two actors where like Tom Cruise, you're gonna become hot shit, but Val Kilmer, he went on to play Batman. How many times did you play Batman, Tom Cruise? Oh yeah, zero. So I thought that was pretty funny. We have Anthony Edwards as Goose, who is, like best friend to Maverick, and who has one of the most talked about scenes in this film, which I'll get to later when I talk about my favorite scenes. He is really the comic relief of the film, which I know when there is the comic relief character in some films I've talked about in the past, I kind of really kind of shit talked like comic characters, and I feel like that. I'm not saying that I absolutely hate them. When they're done poorly, yes, I'm gonna hate it because it just seems like it's gonna take me out of the film. But I think Top Gun is one of the best examples of comic relief characters done right. Because honestly, when uh, there were some moments with him that I kind of started cracking up because it's actually really funny. Where, like I said, other films they kind of just make me shrivel up inside and want me to, and they just make me die. Um, but Goose is a good example of good comic relief characters. We have Meg Ryan who plays Carlo or Carly as who is Goose's wife. Uh, she does fine. I've seen Meg Ryan in several films, and usually it's just eh with her performances, but this one really kind of just captured kind of like some of her best acting in any film, and I think that that's a real benefit. Next up, we have Tom Skerritt as Viper, who is one of the main teachers at Top Gun. And when I saw him and I started hearing this voice, I was like, wait a minute, that sounds familiar, but I don't know where it's from. And then as the film went on, I realized I know where his voice came from and how I recognized it. He played the Captain Dallas in Alien, which I previously reviewed in the first Halloween special. And I thought, you know, your acting has not changed because you're still a effing good actor in both Alien and in this film. I think I actually might like his performance a little bit better in this film than in Alien. Cause Granley he does pull off a fine performance in Alien, as you know, like concerning about everyone, but also like trying to get them off the ship once this alien comes to attack. But I think that this film is better for like he does a better performance solely for the fact that he kind of one scene that kind of helps me boost his acting up in this film, which I'll get to in my favorite scenes, but I'll talk about this more when I get to that. But he really just seems like a father figure to Maverick in this film, which kind of makes me feel like that he does a better performance in this film than he did in Alien, which again I'll get to later. We have the great Michael Ironside as Jester, who is another main teacher at at Top Gun. He really anything that not Tom Scared Michael Ironside is in, he does absolutely great with the performance. Even if the film is absolute trash, he's still like great. He's basically like a Tim Curry, where like if the film has a 1-star rating and it's Michael Ironside in it, he's the reason why it got that 1 star. Um, we have Tim Robbins as Merlin and John Stockwell as Cougar. They both do fine with their performances. Cougar, unfortunately, only appears in like their first like 2 scenes that are actually in the film. That is past like the whole like danger zone intro, which is like the opening fights, like the dog fight, and then um, when he turns his wings in, which I'll get to that whole thing when I talk about the my favorite scenes. Um, but Merlin, played by Tim Robbins, is great. Um, have heard of Tim Robbins and have seen some of his performances, but honestly, I can't think of any of them right now. So, um, yeah, but in this film, he does a good job with his performance. Now we're going to be talking about my favorite scenes. And I have actually a few that Because really, my favorite parts, if I had to like choose like any kind, it's really just the aerial fight scenes, because just showing like the mixture between the actual like footage of like seeing like the Megs like fly around all over the sky, and then cut to like the cockpit shots with like like Maverick and Goose, or like Iceman and his wingman, or his you know other person. I forgot what they're called really. Um, and because I think they use, instead of using blue screen or green screen, because I don't even I think by this point only green screen was a thing. I don't think blue screen was invented for a few years. Um, or it might be the other way around. But anyway, um, instead of using um, blue screen or green screen, they actually used front projection in the film, which makes the shot look a lot better than using a like blue screen, because I don't know exactly, because when you use certain colors against, like, for example, you use a good example of actually how what not to use with like blue screen is Superman 4, because instead of using front projection, which they used for the first three films, they used blue screen to keep costs down, and it really shows, because all the flight scenes, it's Superman's suit is like his suit goes from like the bright blue that it's supposed to be to like um bright like a turquoise green color, to I think even in like one or two shots it becomes straight up just purple. Uh so um it really shows that like front projection really did work a lot better than blue screen. Um and um, there's no loss of color, uh, which we do. Um, we do get in some films. Like for example, I already mentioned Superman 4 with the blue screen. But I think another good example is Jaws 3D. When a good example of how of like lost color is when the shark goes on a rampage in the underwater kingdom, where like like all the shots of like the guests like walking around the tunnels, and um they like look out and they like see the shark like coming towards it, and then like you see like the shots of like them like running past. It's so obvious that there's a lot of lost color, because their skin almost turns like just straight up white. So that shows that like the loss of color with using green screen and stuff like that. But again, that's why I feel like that front projection is a lot better to use than green screen or blue screen. But unfortunately, filmmakers nowadays don't really decide to do that, because I don't know, it's cheaper, and also that like it's kind of like a dying art, kind of like in like actual like special effects, like miniatures and stuff like that, where they can easily just make shots in the computer, and then you have your shot. Uh, I feel like that technology for CGI is getting better, to show that the thing that you're watching on screen is real. But like really back in like it's still kind of noticeable that it's done in a computer, because sometimes it might be a little bit too shiny or a little bit too dull, where models you can kind of get that effect, where you can kind of get like the perfect shot of it, because it's in person, it's in front of the camera. And I feel like that filmmakers these days don't really like that sort of thing anymore. But getting off topic here, all the aerial shots are great. They Um, especially in this opening, I think this shot, the one, the one aerial dogfight, which I'll get to in a minute, and then the final one are really good, like like demos to show like this can this was done back in the 80s and it still looks amazing to this day. Um, uh, but it I think this shot also shows that Maverick, even though he is reckless and he is cocky, he still cares about his fellow crewmates and his fellow pilots because um, after this fight they have to land on the Meg, and Cougar uh is he's like, even Merlin says like, yo Maverick, I think that one really screwed him up. He's shaking, and like you see his face, he's just like he's almost like pale white, like he ain't moving. And so when Maverick goes to land and he hears that Cougar has not come back yet, he's like, nah, fuck it, and he flies back up and he goes after Cougar because he cares about him. Um, you know, it does result in kind of a crash landing of the plane and Cougar turning in his wings. Um, but it does show that Maverick does care about his fellow pilots, and I think that's a plot point that comes up later, that really comes to haunt him uh, later on in the story. And but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to have. It's just that that can come back, especially when you're a fighter pilot. It will come back to haunt you. But I think that that is both just a good scene like by itself, and it does actually help the story move forward. Um, the my second favorite scene is when after Cougar gives up gives up his wings, uh, Maverick and Goose get called in by, I forgot what his name was, but he was Mr. Strickland in the Back to the Future films. And I forgot what his character's name was, but really I would just call him Mr. Strickland anyway because that's his most well known role. And he gives them a scolding, and he he basically promotes them to go to Top Gun. And my one of my favorite lines, if not my favorite line in the whole film, is when right before they leave. Wait, I'm trying to remember what the exact quote is, but it's like, it basically was like, uh, if you're not good out there, then you're flying cargo, rubber dog shit into Hong Kong, and it's like, oh my god, that's so amazing. Um, and it's so funny, and it's probably one of the most memorable lines in the whole film. Um, my third favorite scene, sorry, is the bar scene when they go after their first. I think yeah, it's like after their first class of Top Gun, they go to Maverick and Goose along with the rest of the Top Gun go to this bar where Maverick meets Charlie, and he starts singing this song to her, and I'm like, okay, that's actually kind of cute. And then the eventual dialogue that they have back and forth with each other is cute. I start having a problem when she goes to the bathroom and Maverick follows her into the women's bathroom. And I think I'm not the only one in this because I've heard several people talk about how this scene gets borderline rapey, and I can definitely see why. Because oh boy, this is a scene that kind of makes me just straight up uncomfortable. Uh, but I love the fact that the next scene when it's actually like their actual first quote unquote class. You see like the dress, and then you see like the heels, and then the girl turns around and it's Charlie, and then you just see the Maverick you see the look on Maverick's face. It's like fuck. Um. My second favorite scene would actually, or my, I keep on saying second. My fourth favorite scene is well, not necessarily my favorite scene, but I guess one that I kind of have to mention because really, when anyone talks about this film, they always mention this is the elevator scene between Maverick and Charlie, along with their promiscuous scene, was actually filmed 6 months after principal photography had wrapped because when they showed the initial version to test audiences, they were like, well, we never really see the relationship between them two blossom. So the filmmakers were like, oh, you gotta get these two back and film the elevator scene along with the sex scene. And it's honestly kind of noticeable because you notice that Tom Cruise's hair is longer than in all the other shots, and that's because again it was filmed 6 months later, and I think he was working on another film at the time, and they literally gave it the production that he was working on gave them one day to film all the shots, like the elevator scene and then the sex scene. You see that Kelly is wearing a hat in the scene, and that was because she had cut her hair by this point. So that was to kind of try and hide the fact that she had cut all of her hair off. And I thought that's actually kind of clever to show that um they kind of hide the fact that she had done that she had cut her hair, and about Tom Cruise's hair being longer in both shots or in both scenes. He They realized that it was like a way longer than it was during principal photography. So basically, what they did is that they made it look like that he just came out of the shower, and like they dampened his hair back, like basically like literally like that. They literally just combed all of his hair back, made it all wet, so it literally looked like he just came out of the shower. Um, which I think again that's smart, but honestly kind of more noticeable with Tom Cruise's hair that it's filmed a few months later at least, because again it's way longer, where you can kind of make a guess that Charlie kind of has her hair like kind of pointing down and then into like a ponytail kind of thing, where Maverick it's like, okay, yeah, that's a little bit longer than it should be, even though it is wet after he took a shower. So I kind of needed to mention that because really everyone else who talks about this film like mentions it already, so I just had to mention it. My actual fourth favorite scene is this was one I kind of alluded to earlier about Goose, and this is one of the scenes that really, whenever someone mentions Top Gun, they always really mention this scene, and that is I think it's the third, I believe the third or fourth aerial fight in the film, where it's Maverick and Goose, and along with Iceman and his partner, and they are flying around, and they're trying to chase. I think it's I think it's both Viper and Jester, and uh, Maverick has like he's following Jester, or no, he's following Viper, and Iceman kind of like gets in front of him, and he's like, son of a bitch, and then when Iceman doesn't have the shot, he pulls up, which causes Maverick to get caught in Iceman's jet wash. And they can't recover, and Maverick can't pull the ejector seat. So Goose pulls it, and the canopy launches up, and Goose launches actually up or out before Maverick, and he smashes his head against the canopy, and he is unfortunately killed off at this point. Uh, and I gotta admit, I was kind of devastated because before this is like, oh, happy fun times, woo. Because right before this, Goose has had both his wife and child arrive as well. So everything's like, oh, happy fun times, woo, we're hanging out all together, and then bam, Goose is dead, and it's like, oh, fuck, that is that that's sad. And then it goes to the funeral, and then packing all his belongings, and then that was you know that that's what killed him. That's what killed Maverick, because he talks to the wife and the child, and um, I think it's really after one flight where him and another partner, I forgot what the guy's name was. They are trying to catch Jester, and they have like basically the perfect sight, and Maverick doesn't take it, and he flies back to base. And then when the guy's kind of like, not necessarily yelling at him, but he's telling him like, "We had the shot. Why didn't you take it?" Maverick loses it, and he says, "I take the damn shot when I feel like it's right. So don't be telling me when to take the damn shot." And like the guy backs up like, "Oh shit, maybe like he hasn't got through this." And that's really the final straw, because at that moment he quits. He turns in his wings. And um, my my next favorite scene is the scene between where after he turns in his wings, he goes to Tom Skerritt's character, and he realizes that Tom Skerritt, or Viper, had flown with his father before um, his father died, because this is an underlying theme throughout the film that Maverick's father, I think it was World War I or World War II, both him and but it's just said that Maverick's father was a pilot, and uh, he won, but he unfortunately died uh, during the incident. And um, this scene is like when he visits Tom Skerritt's house and visits him. He Viper explains to him that he fought alongside his father, and he you know uh, was like the best one of the best pilots. So and then he just gives Maverick the choice of either like going tomorrow, like back to class where he has enough points to graduate, or he just quits. And Maverick decides to go back, and he does graduate. But then they get that call for one last job, and this is my final favorite scene. It's this whole final aerial fight, because it's initially Iceman and his partner, along with Hollywood and I forgot what the other guy's name was, but during the fight, Hollywood gets shot down, and at first I thought that he was dead, because you do see the parachute. Well, actually, yeah, you just see like the back engine explode on Hollywood's jet, and he says that we're going down, and then you don't really hear what happens to him, but you do see a parachute fall down, and you do see the guy moving, so it's like, okay, he might have survived. But then at the end, we do see both Hollywood and his partner come out and celebrate with both Maverick and Iceman. Um, and by this point, Maverick, he doesn't have Gears anymore because Gears has died, so he gets Merlin, played by again Tim Robbins, and um, basically, long story short, Maverick saves really Iceman. They fly back, and then the final line basically between them was uh, and a fun fact about this is that um, Val Kilmer hated the line that he had to like say, which was you could be my wingman anytime, and he hated that line because it sounds so cheesy. Um, and I do kind of agree with him. The line is cheesy, but the way that he performs it, kind of takes away the cringy factor from it, and it does sound like a badass line. Um, And and yeah, that's really all of my favorite scenes. I Before I move on to my fun facts, I do want to mention, because I forgot to bring this up when I was talking about the scene, but um, the the flight stunt coordinator for the film was a guy named Art Scholl, who was a stunt pilot, he was a pilot acrobatic, and he performed almost all of the aerial stunts in the film. Like everything you see up till a certain scene, which I'm gonna get to, uh, throughout the film, when it's like an aerial shot of like planes like flying around, it was most likely Art Scholl who was doing them. And it came to the day that they were gonna film the spin out in Goose's death. And Art Scholl, it was just the same day. He got up in his plane, he started flying around, and all they heard was over the radio is, "I got a problem, I got a big problem," and that was it. He went under the clouds, and his body was never found. And it devastated the crew because they basically, I mean, it wasn't their fault, but they were kind of responsible for, not, again, not 100%. Like it really wasn't, but they were like, they lost this man. Like he was a well-known man. Like everyone in like Hollywood and everyone, like all, like every stunt pilot knew this man. And luckily the film is dedicated to him in the end credits. So is this video. So um uh it's really sad that that did happen. Um, if you want a little bit more information about it, I will put a link in the description below to a review that kind of goes a little bit more into depth about what Archel did for Top Gun and what eventually did happen uh, with his untimely death. And so, yeah, let's get on to the fun facts. For Well, the first one I have is that when it's the class in the like in the hangar, and Maverick is talking is telling Charlie about the maneuver, or how he took out the Meg, and the line that where Iceman says, like, he calls like, "Oh, bullshit," was actually ad libbed by Val Kilmer himself. Um, which I thought was actually really funny, and it does actually kind of go well with the scene. And my second fun fact is the real Top Gun school imposes a $5 fine to any staff member who quotes this film. So basically, if I worked at Top Gun right now, like if I was at the Top Gun school, and I said, for example, like, I feel the need for speed, I would have to pay the school. Well, I don't know if it's the school or it's military itself, but I have to pay them $5 every single time. So that's kind of, you know, mm, I don't know about that one. um, the score was done by Harold. Uh, Hold on, I'm gonna have to look up this guy's name. I'll be right back. Okay, so the score was done by Harold Faltermeyer and Georgia Moroder. Um, Really, I think it's more credited towards Howard Faltermeyer because he did most of the I think he did most of the actual like score for the film, while Georgia Moroder really only helped with like some of the pop songs. Because I know that Danger Zone. Well, actually, I don't know about I think Danger Zone he worked on, along with the end title track. Um, but yeah, really, I think it's just Howard Faltermeyer, and he does the score is actually really good. But again, like I've said several times in the past, this is one of those scores where it works really well with the film. By itself, not really. Like the actual film score itself, the pop songs are synonymous. Like Danger Zone, which is probably one of the most it's one of the most catchiest 80s songs, but it's also like one of the 80s songs. Like one of the most 80s songs that you'll ever hear. Um, and then the end title track. I forgot what the track was called, but that is actually a really good song. That I honestly could listen to at any time. But yeah, that's really about it. Final thoughts on Top Gun. Now, I honestly thought that this film was just gonna be generally okay for me because I've heard people say that this film doesn't have a plot. It's really just, you know, you really only watch this film for the aerial shots. Which, yeah, it's most really recognizable for those aerial shots because they were done for real. But I think that overall, as a film, it is still really good. I don't think it's like I don't think it's a masterpiece. Mostly, I mean, granted, mostly everyone doesn't think it is, but there are some people out there who do think it's a masterpiece. And really, I think the only reason why I don't think it's as good as many people say it is because, I mean, yes, the the aerial shots are amazing, but really, there's just way too many um like there's way too many scenes that slow down the film that kind of makes the pacing uneven for me, where it kind of goes from like the opening, it goes from like the aerial fight to them being scolded, which kind of slow. It doesn't. I'm not saying that like every film should be fast paced. I'm just saying that like when you slow it down, you shouldn't slow it down too much where like it jumps back into like high like pace action again. It should be really um it shouldn't go like shouldn't be so abrupt, which I kind of feel like some scenes in this film kind of happen like that. Nevertheless, I still really like this film, so I'm gonna give this film a C plus. Uh, it's a really good film that I do think that people should check out. So I do recommend this film, but do be forewarned that those scenes where it kind of slows down too much do happen, where like it jumps back into like aerial fights again, and it kind of just seems a little bit abrupt. But just letting you guys know that right now, I still recommend it, but I am warning you that does happen. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the season 4 pilot of Ross's movie reviews. Stay tuned for the next 3 weeks where I'm going to be discussing a certain little trilogy from the 90s that I feel like it's one of those trilogies where it gets worse over time. And many people do agree with me, but I will be talking about the original Ninja Turtles trilogy, obviously starting with the 1990 classic. So anyway, guys, hope you guys stay tuned for that video. Click over here, I believe again, for my face to go to my channel and hit that subscribe button and that bell icon, or just click down there for my name and do the exact same thing. It should only take a few seconds. Also, click over here, I believe, or actually, it should no. My face should be probably over here. Videos over here or whatever. You know, click somewhere on the screen for my previous 2 videos. So, yeah. So anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for next week where I'm going to be discussing the original 1990 Ninja Turtles film. Live long and prosper. Out.